Thank you. Thank you, folks, for joining us. Now, again, in case you don't know why we're live for this, we're all sort of sequestered now. And in talking about this and figuring out how could we bring this out to the masses, the decision was made to go live with this. That way, we bring it to you and you don't have to come here. We have some souls here working hard that are going to join us, and who knows, we may put all of them on camera. But my name is Kaye England, and my job today first is to introduce you to Marion Yoder, whose father was the person who started Yoder Department Store 75 years ago. So I'm going to bring this over to Mr. Marion Yoder, and he's going to take over. And let's tell him we don't have Scott. We've already kissed up, so this is fine that we don't have one on. But we want you folks to stay on, but we aren't, because we want to be able to have you hear us better. So take it away. Tell us about Yoder's.
Well, thank you, Kay. When I was asked about talking a little bit about the history of Yoder Department Store, I wondered why me. Then I got to thinking, I'm really the only one available that was present at the start of the business and is still present today. So I first need to make a couple of disclaimers, or at least one disclaimer. I was never personally involved with the day-to-day business, and so what I have planned, or what I'd like to tell you, is my observation as an outsider, but a family. The business, the 75 years of history of the business. Grandpa, or Ora, my father, started his career as a school teacher. He taught here in Shipshewana in the high school business and mathematics. And he probably started teaching in the 1930s. Taught for a number of years, probably a dozen years or so. And I think he got a little bit itchy feet, or happy feet. He wanted to put his business and math experience or knowledge to practical use. So in 1945, he bought a business, an existing business in Topeka, and it was a dry goods store, we called it back in those days, and it was really concentrated to the Amish people. I remember I would have been 7 years old when the business started, but I remember as a youngster, probably 10 or 12 years of age, every Saturday night, or every Saturday, helping the family in the business. My older sister, my dad, sometimes my mother, and one of the treats of working my payment was a pineapple sundae at the pharmacy deli right next door to the store in Topeka. But the merchandise initially was really geared toward the Amish. I remember Amish hats, the black Amish hats that you see. There were at least 15 different styles. Wide brims, narrow brims, high crowns, low crowns, flat, rounded, wide ribbons, narrow ribbons, and all varieties. And that was one of the things that I remember. I also remember having Amish ladies make pants for the men. the barn door pants, that unbuttoned and flopped out. Were very common. And in addition to Amish oriented merchandise, there were shoes. Uh, I think there was some fabric, but not very much, as I recall. But anyway, that business operated for maybe 15 years, and a business here in Shipshewana became available. So Grandpa bought that business, which was a combination. It was a dry goods store and a grocery. It probably wasn't 15 years because I remember working in the grocery store part of the business here in Shipshewana. Three things I remember about that. But one, we had a longhorn of cheese from, I'm spacing the name of the cheese company, right? Country Line, I think. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But there was a knife there, and the cheese was just setting out on a table, and you'd slice off whatever amount you wanted, half pound, pound, or whatever. One thing I remember about helping in the store. The second thing I remember is that there was a lot of competition for bread. There were a couple different companies, and bread was stacked on a counter, probably about 2 or 3 deep. And I remember somebody caught one of the suppliers or one of the reps who brought bread with a pin puncturing the wrapping of the bread on the bottom so that the bread on the top would just gradually smash. Remember there was that one morning the general manager, soon after opening the store, fell dead on the floor with a heart attack, and pretty traumatic for everyone involved. After several years in the grocery dry goods store, a fabric and notion store became available across the alley, and Grandpa bought that store too. For those of you who know anything about Shipshewana, that was Loophole store, and the other store initially here in Shipshewana was M.Y. Miller. So for those of you who date way back, that may ring a bell. After, well, the two stores functioned separately for a while, and then Grandpa, with some friends, made a trip to Nova Scotia, and there he came across a building that was like a mini mall, but it had a fabric store or dry goods store, a hardware, and a grocery. And he was fascinated with that concept. So when he came back, it began to percolate in his brain, and he decided that he would like to establish something like that here in Shipshewana. So as he got to furthering plans, he needed financing, and the bank here in town would not finance him because, one, he was too old. He was about 60 at the time, and two, he would never make it because he was establishing a business out of town. The town at that point was about 3 blocks away, and it encompassed about 3 blocks too. And so this was out in a pasture field, and he was never going to make it. So the bank said no. So what did he do? He contacted a few wealthy Amish who decided they would risk financing him. Lo and behold, that's how he got his financing to build this building. And I think they moved in here from those locations in on January 1st.
About 68.
Uh, the building initially was about half the size that it is now. And as the business grew, over 20 years, they decided they needed more space. So there was a 50 or 60-foot addition 20 years later, so 88, 90, somewhere along in there. And then the business continued to grow. So the second edition of 50 or 60 feet, going to St. Louis on a mine trip in, at that time, 1945 to 50, was a big deal. As the business grew, Jeanette took over as general manager. She was involved in the business on and off throughout her early adult years. She took over as general manager in 1992, I think after Grandpa died. And so then Andre, our son, took over from her in '05, '06. I'll let them go ahead and describe, tell us about their part of this whole business as it developed. So my wife, Meredith.
Okay, I'm going to bring you up to date a little bit on the cotton corner here. We have been representing the Bernina sewing machines for almost 40 years now. I had a store in Goshen in the 80s, and the machines, and after Marion retired, I was ready to a bit too, so I sold my business to Yoder Department store. They changed the name to the Cotton Corner, and we were across the parking lot next door. Now, Yoder Shopping Center, so we're all under one roof now. You to be a representative of Bernina Sewing Machines. You know they're the best. It's hand-dyed batiks only. We do long arm quilting for you, and we'd love to have you come and visit our store. I'm going to introduce our son Andre, who is a general manager for Yoder Department Store, and he will bring you up to date on what is going on now and what will continue to grow, I'm sure.
So welcome and thank you, Kaye, and thank you for the history and a little bit of that. I'll just kind of get you from '06 when I took over to current day. So when I came in, the cash registers, everything was a keypad and nothing was on the computer at all. We had actually one computer in the whole store. So today we're doing multi-marketplace e-commerce, and the same products that we've always had in the store we're continuing with. We have shoes, fabric, and so we've really come a decade or so. But you're not here for all. So thanks again, and we'll touch base later.
My father-in-law started this business with the golden rule in mind, and we want to continue to that, to be what you want, how you would want to be treated. We want to treat you that way too.
Oh, I love that. That's great. Well, we got to do a little mic shift here and stuff, but I'm going to take over while they shift mics. And Brian, because see, we didn't get to practice this. This is the way this works, and that's why I love live. What are you going to point at me for? Because we didn't get to practice. Is that what this is about?
That if Grandpa could come back for a time, I think he would be extremely proud in what developed from his idea way back 75 years ago.
I would agree with you, and I didn't know him, but I would agree with you. Thank you for sharing that. So we're going to mic up a little bit. I'm going to talk to a few things while we get Meredith mic'd up. We've got to unmic one and mic another one, and then we're ready to go. So here's what our goal is, and for those of you watching on Facebook Live, we will take questions. We'll take questions from you guys, and what I think is so important for us to have taken this minutes of our first session for this event to let the founders explain how Yoder Department Store came about. Because a lot of people know about it, but then nobody really knows that history, and I didn't know all of that. And I've known and worked with Andre here at Yoder's and the Cotton Corner, and Meredith and I were competitor Bernina dealers for a jillion years, and she always beat me. I want you to know I'm still not over that. But yeah, well, you beat me enough. Let's put it that way. And so we go way back, and then it's just been my great pleasure to be able to work with Andre. I love Shipshewana. I could live in Shipshewana. I love working with these people. And when this all first came about, and we were all brainstorming how on earth would we be able to put something like this on. And Andre was adamant in wanting to be able to share the birthday celebration, the 75 years, which just comes along once. And so you feel it's really important to do it, but still was worried about how to do it in a safe manner. And then we came up with, why don't we do Facebook Live? Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Facebook Live, what's so great about this, it's airing now. People can ask questions in Florida if somebody's sitting down there and sunbathing and wants to ask a question. But what's even more important is it will live on the YouTube videos later. So as we get into technique, the classes that we're going to do now in the next one, and then we're going to do a trunk show of about 20-some quilts from Wilmington, which is the fabric company that does my fabric. So we're going to do a trunk show. All those things will live on YouTube. So anything that we talk about that's a technique or a pattern or a project, you'll be able to go and access until, well, I think it's there like forever. I don't know what forever is, but I think it's there a long, long time. So one of the things that we've kind of tried to pin down subject matters. And so Meredith is incredibly informed on all the product that's in the Cotton Corner and Yoder's as well when it comes to the sewing aspect. And what we're talking about now, Yoder's is way more than fabric, and all of you know that. I mean, it's loads and loads of things other than fabric, but that's kind of how we're going to celebrate it, is from the fabric side. So I'm going to be doing another segment at 2, and then at 3 we have the trunk show. We have the party tonight. And then tomorrow morning, we have Penny Herron will be presenting 3 different programs tomorrow morning. Then tomorrow afternoon, we'll kind of do a replay of this, but we'll get right into talking about the block of the month. So for our audience that's in-house, do you all quilt? Does everyone that's in it, so you either all sew, quilt, something like, okay. So what we talked about, when we try to figure out what to present, we're bound by what the new product is, when's it going to be available, when's it coming, and that sort of thing. So the quilt that's behind me that Meredith and I are going to show you a few things about, this is Sapphire Star, and it is the block of the month quilt from the Sapphire Blossoms fabric collection. It's on the UPS truck somewhere, probably in Indiana right now. It should have been here today, but like everything, it's delayed a little bit. But we're going to talk to you about that, and what the department store, what Yoder's has done, is they have kitted this up. Now, anything that we talk about, Meredith, we didn't have a practice session, so let me tell you. The key word for anything that happens in here is Kaye Sapphire.
Okay.
Can you help me remember that? Because I'll forget it by the time we turn around. So, in other words, let's just say you decide tonight you're going to go online and you're going to go, well, what did they say about that kit? Where is it? Kaye Sapphire. That's where you're going to find anything that we talk about this segment and next segment. So every segment will have a key to get you back to it. Now, because you folks are here, of course, you can buy and take with you some of the things, but this kit will be available probably within the next week. So here's what, for those of you who do block, how many of you do block of the months? Now, for those of you out there in outer land, I only had one hand go up that you do block of the month. The rest of you don't. And the reason you don't is? Just didn't. I'm always curious about that because from a fabric company standpoint, that is, and I design fabric for Wilmington and have for many, many years, and that is always the question that comes up is, what's your take on it? Do you not do it just because of time? Do you not do it because of the price point? Do you not do it? Give me a reason why it's not, if you're an avid sewer, why it's just never crossed your path.
I think I like to have it all at one time and then just work on it whenever I want.
Well, see, then this is for you, ma'am, because one of the things that our company has decided, and I don't know about other fabric companies because I'm not that well versed on what they do, is we do it two ways. We do it where the shop that buys the kit can make the decision to have people come in once a month. We do it, which is how I work, which it goes out the door in a bag. So this is sold as a block of the month, but it is kitted in one bag with all the patterns, everything that you need, and all the fabric to do that. And what makes this a little more complicated for the fabric companies is we kit, and you'd be well aware of this, we kit it based on, it can be a 10 session come in once a month, and that's a set of patterns, and then there's a set of patterns for what we call going out the door. And a lot of times it is the store that makes the decision. But what Yoder's has done from the get-go on these, it's in the bag going out the door. So you get the entire package at one time. Now they just gave me, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it, but you're going to, here, oh, that's not that one. Wait, see, we didn't get to practice this. Where's our other, oh, there it is, it's hiding. I don't know how many of you shop in places other than Yoder's for your fabric, and I am telling the truth on this one. First of all, anybody who knows me knows it doesn't matter what you tell me to say. I just say what I feel like saying. You've already figured that out, haven't you? Well, why not yet? Because I got set it up. I can tell you that I know what my fabric retails for in virtually every shop that it's in. And for those of you who are buying good quality cotton now, you're finding it in the $10, $11 range and sometimes going even a skosh higher. One of the things that I have found from the get-go of working with Yoder department store when they kit, and I think you guys do here because we'll be showing a batik kit a little bit later in the day, is they price it very differently. So this kit, for everything except the back, in a bag with all 12 blocks, all of these broken down in individual house to do it for $160.98. So if you said, gee, I want that, you can get it today by just walking up to the cash register. Well, you can't get it, but you can purchase it today because the fabric has to arrive and then they have to cut their kits. And here, let me show you what it looks like. Oh, and Meredith, this is going to be fun. Here you get, look how pretty that is. Now this, because we just had the kit, we preview a kit, so the shop gets a kit, and we'll leave this lay up here so when we break between the sessions, feel free to come up and look at this. And then you get a full picture of the pattern, all 12 blocks broken out, and the setting, how to cut the stripe, and the whole 9 yards comes in that bag. So at that price, I can tell you that I'd be willing to bet my llama, I have llamas and goats, well, maybe a goat, maybe not a llama, that it's 20% or more under anywhere you're going to find it in the country. So if you are in the mood to do a block of the month that you can actually do on a weekend if you feel like it, we just call it a block of the month. Now, we're going to leave that lay up here, and then I have a question for you. Do you guys work traditionally? When you're doing your piecing, do you piece like when you cut for a triangle? You got to make a triangle that's 2 inches. Do you cut traditionally for that? What's your method for getting a triangle? I'm just curious. Okay, a ruler? Anybody else? Do you use triangle paper? Do you cut a square and cut it in half? Do you draw a line down the middle and sew on both sides? That sort of thing. The way all of our patterns from Wilmington is written is they are written traditionally, meaning you do not need to own anything in order to execute the pattern. So you don't need a special this or a special that. What we're going to be talking about in the next segment will be a way to whip these out pretty quick. So we're going to talk about some speed methods for doing it in the next session. But in this one, we're just pretty much going to talk about the fabric, the opportunity. This quilt, I just put the binding on this about 4 days ago. It's brand new. No one has seen it. No one even at the company has seen it. I just finished the quilt and got the binding on this one. And while I was working on it, this is something, and you're going to be my holder.
Okay.
It's real heavy. I don't know if you can do it or not. I think you can. Now, I just can't wait to play with something. So I wanted to take the fabric collection and I made this little 2-block table runner, and Meredith had a great idea. She said, well, it could be a pillow sham. Well, I wish I'd thought of that. I just thought, I'm going to call it a pillow sham after I go home. But I wanted to play with some of the techniques we're going to use in the next session, which is using specialty rulers. So you'll even hear a little bit more about that tomorrow morning, and some different methods. And then I'm going to also show you how you can do this with AccuQuilt, the AccuCut machine. So we'll be talking about that a little bit later. But because I told them that we were doing this, they did. This is a kit. First of all, the pattern is included because I do a little pattern on it. And it is written for either AccuQuilt or the rulers, which we'll talk about in the next segment. And there's what that will cost you, $20.98. And it's called Birthday Star. So now remember, if you go online to look for it, it's going to live under, yeah, there you go. And if you're here, you just tell the staff that that's what you're looking for. But we'll get into detail a little bit more about how easy it is to cut that. I also have, when we do a pattern line, we do a project sheet that the stores have that they can, if you go back into where their pre-cuts are in Yoder's, you'll see all these project sheets for patterns and things. That's where they'll live. And I just whipped out one little block of this just like a couple of days ago just to be able to show. So we're going to leave all this for you guys to look at. But the question, do we have any questions online? Shayla, is there anybody online with a burning question? What are you folks doing watching us online out there? Do you have a burning question? Does anyone in the audience have a burning question?
There's more than 12 blocks there. So it's
Now you're so clever, yes. So because what happens, if you look around this, there's going to be repeat blocks, but they have different fabric inclusions. So the two that are here may be the exact same elements, but they'll be colored differently because that's how they put. We do about 18 pieces, and we don't always include all 18 in the block of the month kit. It may not use 2 of them, but that would be used in the project sheet that comes with it. But this is somebody always says, how big is it? And I'm like, it's that big. It's big, but it would easily fit a queen size bed. If it were a king, I would probably, if you wanted it on a king, I would probably put another row of blocks and or widen your borders, which is always one nice way to get it to fit a king. But it is a diagonal set. We'll talk a little bit more about that again on tech. We're going to do a little more technique next time. This was kind of a welcome thing to introduce one new block of the month. We've got cake and ice cream. Any other questions?
we had a question online. They want to know if we ship.
Well, I don't know. Do we, Shayla? You bet we do. As long as there's a truck out there pulling it, we will do it. Yes. Yes, and I think when you go online, there's going to be a lot of things that we're just getting up that we'll talk about. Deals, like I think in some cases there's going to be some free shipping offered, that sort of thing, and that's stuff that you need to look online. If you folks are local and you're here, obviously you just pop in. Another question? Somebody else? I saw that. What?
No, but we want to make an announcement that Winston O'Brien was our Facebook Live 1:30 drawing winner.
You have a wonder, who is it?
Winston O'Brien.
Winston O'Brien. That sounds like a cigarette, doesn't it? Or something. So Winston won the prize, and what is it?
$75 gift card for Yoder Department.
Wow, that's great.
Well, now how do these people win? Do they have? Are they in a drawing?
You have to like the Facebook page.
Y'all need to hurry up and get on the Facebook. Get on your phones and like the Facebook page, and you'll be in the drawing. Thank you, Winston, for liking our Facebook page. Do we have any other questions here or online? Because yes, ma'am.
Okay, how long does it take you to design the fabric line and the pattern?
Well, I am blessed in that I work with Wilmington Prints, which is a fabric company that has an awesome art department, an awesome every department of that. And I'd like to say I do it all, but I'm going to be real honest with you. They do the bulk of the work, but we work somewhere about a year in advance. So right now, I'm getting ready to work on one that we did about a year ago. We're also in the midst of working on one that won't deliver until next July, probably. So we're, with the mills and the way, and especially COVID has really altered the way the mills are working too, that we're about 3 months behind on everything from the mill getting stuff. So be patient with your stores if they don't have it, because it's not their fault they don't have it. It just takes a while to get it in. So I would say, to be safe, I'd say a year from start to finish. From concept to delivery is probably about a year. Maybe even a little more than that. Anybody else? Well, I tell you, I think we'll wrap this because we got to get ready and start cutting and doing all sorts of next. Thank you so much for joining us. For those of you out in Facebook land, thank you for joining us. Join us for the next session, and we'll be up in about 20 minutes. So have a great day. Stay safe. Thank you, folks, for coming. Thank you, Meredith, for helping. All right.